add those to make one fraction. The numerator, we have 9m. We can combine that with 8m, and we're adding those together. 9m plus 8m would be 17m. Then we have negative 63 plus a positive 16. That would be negative 47. The factors for the denominator would stay the same, m minus 7 and m plus 2. The statement says a number x is decreased by 13. Decrease means we're minusing 13. Letter A has minus x, which is incorrect. Letter B is subtracting x, which is incorrect. It could be C or D because both of those are subtracting 13. The last part of the sentence says less than or equal to 39. Less than is both of these symbols, or equal to means it has a line underneath the inequality, so it won't be D. The correct answer would be C. In this question, the shopkeeper is selling 15 kilograms, or also minus 15. Letter A has minus 15, which is okay. Letters B and C both have plus 15, so we can eliminate those as possible answers. And letter D, which has minus 15, is okay. Next part says a new shipment weighing 2 kilograms is received, meaning that they're adding 2y to the expression. Letter A has minus 2y, which would be incorrect. Letter D shows the adding 2y to the new shipment, so the correct answer would be D. In this question, we're dividing a number by 5. Letter A is dividing by 5. Letter B is dividing by 5. Letter C is dividing by n, so that would be incorrect. And letter D is also dividing by 5. After we divide by 5, we're going to add 4 to the result. In letter A, we're adding 9 to the result, which is incorrect. Letter B, we're adding 4, which could be correct. And letter D, we're adding 4, but then dividing by 5, which would be incorrect. The question wants us to divide by 5 first, and then add 4, which would be letter B. In this question, the books are sell for $B and they're on sale for $10 off, which means we'll be subtracting $10. Letter A has minus 10. Letter B is adding 10, which should be incorrect. Letter C is minus 10. And letter D is adding 10, which should be incorrect. The question is, how many dollars would it cost to buy 3 books? In letter A, this would be 3 times the books, and then we're taking $10 off. In letter C, this would be 3 times the quantity of each book minus $10. A would be incorrect because we'll be taking $10 off of each book and then multiplying by 3 or buying 3. In this question, the first part we want the sum of two numbers to be 10, so adding two numbers would be equal to 10. Letter A does not have any addition, so that would be incorrect. Letter B, we're adding 5 and it's equal to y, but we want the expression to be equal to 10. Letter C, we have two numbers adding to 10, and letter D, we have two numbers adding to 10. Last part of the question says one number is 5 times the other, or one number is 5 multiplied by the other. Letter C has 5 times a number, whereas D has x plus a number. That's not multiplying by 5, that's adding 5. So your correct answer would be C. For this question, we'll plug in the numbers. N is equal to 2 and x is equal to 1/2. So we'll have 2 parentheses 4 minus 1/2. To subtract fractions, we need common denominators. We can put a 1 underneath the 4. To make these both the same, you can multiply by 2. That would make this 8 over 2 minus 1 over 2. And still have to be multiplied by 2 on the outside. 8 over 2 minus 1 over 2. Subtract the numerators would be 7 over 2. And multiplying by 2, 2 times 7 would be 14. Divided by 2 would be 7. Correct answer would be C. For this question, we'll plug in the numbers. H is equal to 3 and K is equal to 4. H would be 3, K would be 4, and then plus 4 divided by 2 and minus 2. Following PEMDAS, we'll multiply first. 3 times 4 would be 12 minus 2. When you have fractions, you want to do the numerator first before you divide. So 12 plus 4 would be 16 divided by 2. 16 divided by 2 would be 8, and 8 minus 2 would be 6. For this question, we'll take the value x equals 7, plug it in, and solve. We'll have 3 plus 5 squared would be 25. Divided by 4 minus, plugging the x in, 7 plus 1. Solving parentheses first, we have 3 plus 25 would be 28. And solving the second parentheses, 7 plus 1 would be 8. Again, following PEMDAS, we'll divide first and then subtract. 28 divided by 4 would be 7. And 7 minus 8 would be negative 1. For this question, we'll have to look at the graph to figure out how far ahead car A is from car B after 3 hours. The time in hours is at the bottom of the graph. 3 hours would be right here. So in 3 hours, car B and car A are at those 2 points. Car B is at 40 kilometers. Car A is at 60 kilometers. And the distance between those would be 20. So our correct answer would be C. For this question, we'll have to figure out if company A is less expensive than company B for any of the following. Company A is less expensive for all calls. Your cost is on the left-hand side. If A was less expensive for all calls, A would always be underneath company B. But since company A goes above company B at time 3 minutes, company A is not less expensive for all calls. For 3-minute calls only, if you look at 3 minutes, they're actually both the same for 3 minutes. They cost 75 cents. So both are exactly the same. So again, company A is not less expensive. For calls less than 3 minutes, so for all numbers less than 3 minutes, which would be this area, company A is underneath company B, so that would be true. If we check letter D, calls longer than 3 minutes, anything longer than 3 minutes to the right, company A would be above company B, which means company A would be more expensive, so it would not be D. Correct answer would be C. For this question, we want to figure out the approximate weight of the moon of an astronaut that's 120 pounds on Earth. Looking at the horizontal axis, the x-axis, 120 would be somewhere in this vicinity between 100 and 150. Going up to the graph, it appears it's about 20 pounds on the moon. So the correct answer would be B, 20 pounds. For this question, we have x to the third power and y to the third power. X to the third means that there's 3 x's, and y to the third means that there's 3 y's. The only answer, D, has 3 x's and 3 y's. For this question, we'll plug in -2 for x, which would be -2 to the 5th power. It's always a good idea to put parentheses around the number you plug in. That way we know it's -2 to the 5th power, which would be -2 times itself 5 times. -2 times -2 would be +4. -2 times -2 would be +4. And we have an extra -2 left. 4 times 4 would be 16. And 16 times -2 would be -32. Correct answer would be A. For this question, we have 2 parentheses, 6x minus 2, the same one twice, and then we have a third parentheses that's different, 6x plus 2. Looking at the answers, if we have 2 parentheses of 6x minus 2, that would be 6x minus 2 squared, meaning we have 2 of those. Letter C only has 1, letter B has 3 6x plus 2's, and letter A has 3 6x minus 2's. In letter D, the extra 6x plus 2 is at the end of the answer. For this question, the square root of 4 would be 2. And when solving the square root of x to the 4th, you can write down x to the 4th, which would be 4 x's. The square root would be how many pairs we have. We have 2 pairs of x's, so that would be x to the 2nd power. Correct answer would be letter D. Multiplying this out, we would have 6 times 7, which would be 42. A to the 4th times 1 more A would be A to the 5th. B times B to the 3rd would be B to the 4th. And C times C would be C squared. When you multiply variables, we'll be adding the exponents. Correct answer for this one would be letter D. Multiplying this problem out, we would have 7 times 7 would be 49. A squared would stay the same since there's no other a's. B times B would be B squared. And C squared would stay the same. Our final answer would be letter C, 49, A squared, B squared, C squared. Taking the square root of 100, that would be 10, and the square root of A squared would be A, because A times A would be A squared. Correct answer would be A, 10A. For this graph, we have half a U-shape that curves up to the right. Normally in algebra, your U-shapes will be parabola shapes, but this graph only has the right side of the parabola shape. Looking at the equations, if we just have a single x, like y equals mx plus b, this would be a straight line, which we don't have. X squared is how you get the parabolas or the U-shapes, so it could be letter B. Letter C again is in the equation y equals mx plus b, which would be a straight line. And letter D has x squared, which again would be a parabola or U-shape. The difference is one is positive 1.75 and one is negative 1.75. To get a parabola U-shape pointing up, that would be positive. If it was negative, the U-shape would be pointing down. So the correct answer would be D, 1.75 x squared. To find the slope of a line, we can pick any 2 points on the graph and count the rise over run. For example, if we pick these 2 points, you can make a triangle out of it. It will go 1 spot up and 2 spots to the right. 1 spot would be the rise, 2 spots would be the run, and our correct answer would be C, 1/2. For this question, we have 6 as the rise on the slope, and letter D is the run that goes up. So if we did rise over run, that would be D over 6. For the slope, we want that to be 2/3, so we can set it equal to 2/3. Solving this question, we can cross multiply. D times 3 would be 3D, and 6 times 2 would be 12. Solving for D, you can divide by 3, and D is equal to 4, so our correct answer would be B. For this question, we can find what m is equal to and what b is equal to for the line given. M is the slope, how much a line goes rise over run, up and over. In this case, it goes 1 over 1, or the slope would be 1. B is the y-intercept, where it starts at the y-axis. In this case, it would be 3. Looking at the answers, slope of 1 could be A, B, C, or D. They all have a positive 1x. And letter B at the end should be a positive 3. The only correct answer would be C. For this question, we want to figure out the slope or the rise over run. The cost on the y-axis would be the rise. In this case, would be $1.50. Divided by the run, which would be the x-axis, the number of cans, in this case would be 2. $1.50 divided by 2, we can use long division to solve that. 150 goes in the inside, divided by 2. 2 goes into 15, 7 times. 7 times 2 would be 14. Subtract, you get 1. Bring down the 0. 2 into 10 goes 5 times. 5 times 2 would be 10. So there'd be no remainder. If you bring the decimal straight up, it'd be 0.75. Put a 0 in front, and our correct answer would be B, 75 cents. For this question, we'll solve the inequality. 2x plus 10,000 is greater than or equal to 70,000. If we subtract 10,000 on each side, we'll have 10x is greater than 60,000. 70,000 minus 10,000 would be 60,000. Dividing by 2, x is greater than or equal to. 6 divided by 2 would be 3, bringing down the 4 zeros, and you'd have x is greater than or equal to 30,000. Each of the answers has 30,000 in it. At least 30,000 means 30,000 or more, which is what our answer is. At most 30,000 means the highest it can be is 30,000. Has to be less than that, but our answer is greater than 30,000. Less than 30,000, but our answer is greater than 30,000. And more than 30,000 would work, except ours is or equal to, so that would be at least, which means 30,000 or more. Solving this equation, we can add 3 to both sides. So 2x would equal 10, dividing by 2, and x equals 5. Correct answer would be D. Solving this inequality, we can subtract 3 on both sides. 2n would be less than 14. Dividing by 2, n would be less than 7. Correct answer would be D. For this question, we have a box filled with apples. The total weight is 12 kilograms. We want to figure out how many apples are in each box, or how much each apple weighs, and we can figure that out. If the total box is 12 kilograms, we can subtract off the weight of the box when it's empty. It would be 2 kilograms, which means we have 10 kilograms of apple weight, or 10 kilograms of apples. Each apple weighs 0.25 kilograms, so if we divide by 0.25, we can figure out how many apples that we have in the box. For long division, we would have 10 divided by 0.25. To divide decimals, you'd have to move this decimal over 2 times, make that 25, and this decimal will move over 2 times, add the zeros, and make it 1,000. 25 goes into 100 4 times. 4 times 25 would be 100. Bring the 0 down. 0.25 doesn't go into 0, so our answer would be 40. The correct answer would be B. For this problem, we can write an equation. Brad bought a binder for $6. And he adds to that several packs of paper. We don't know how many packs, but they're 60 cents each. So that would be 60 cents times X. And his total was $13.20, so it would equal $13.20. Solving this expression, we can subtract the 6. $13.20 minus 6. We can put the zeros on here, subtract straight down. And 13 minus 6 would be 7. $7.20. Dividing by 60 cents. $7.20 divided by 60 cents using long division. Again, we can move the decimal over twice to make that 60. $7.20, we'd move that twice to make it 720. 60 into 72 would go once. 1 times 60 would be 60. Subtract straight down. Bring the 0 down. 60 into 120 would be 2. 2 times 60 would be 120. Our answer on top would be 12, which is letter C. Title of the first section of notes is Simplify. Radicals. A radical is the same thing as a square root. Our first question is radical 25 or square root 25. This would be a number times itself that's equal to 25, and that answer would be 5. Second question is radical 50 or square root 50. In this case, there's no whole number times itself that equals 50. So to solve this question, what we'll do is called a factor tree. We'll pick 2 numbers that multiply to get 50. For example, 5 times 10. You can use any 2 numbers you want. You could also use 25 and 2. It doesn't matter which numbers you pick. as long as they multiply to 50. 5 is a prime number, which means 5 is the only number that multiplies to get itself, so we won't factor that anymore. But the number 10, we can pick two numbers that multiply to get 10. In this case, it would be 5 and 2. Your factor tree is complete when you're left with numbers that you can't factor anymore. To get your final answer, you want to circle your pairs of numbers. For example, we have a pair of 5s. That would be our first number for the answer. Any single number at the bottom of a factor tree that does not have a pair goes inside a square root or inside a radical. In this case, our final answer would be 5 radical 2. For the factor trees, we don't use the 50 and the 10. We only use the numbers at the bottom of the factor tree. Next question we'll do is square root or radical 24. And again, there's no number times itself that equals 24. So again, we'll do a factor tree on 24. Picking two numbers again that multiply get 24. You could do 6 times 4. You could also do 12 times 2. You could also do 8 times 3. Any two numbers and it'll get you the same answer. The 6 we can factor. 6 would be 3 times 2. And the 4 we can factor. 4 would be 2 times 2. And again, once you have prime numbers, no other numbers that you can factor at the bottom of your factor tree, then we can figure out what the answer is. You want to circle your pairs of numbers. We have 3 2's, but circling pairs means we'll only circle 2 of them. So our first number would be 2. Then we'd have the radical sign. We have 2 numbers left over that don't have pairs. What we can do is multiply those together, 3 times 2, and put that inside a radical, which would be 6. So our final answer would be 2 radical 6. And the last problem for the section will be radical 98. And again, 98, there is no number times itself that's 98, but we can figure out a factor tree for it. Two numbers that multiply get 98. We could use 2 since it's an even number, and 2 times 49 would be 98. 49 we can factor again. 49 would be 7 times 7. Again, once our factor tree is complete, all prime numbers on the bottom, we can circle the pairs. That would be the first number we'd write down. Single numbers like 2 that are left over go inside the radical. And again, the 98 and the 49 we don't use because we factored those to other numbers. But our final answer would be 7 radical 2. Last section of notes today is titled Simplify More Radicals. First question for the section is 5 radical 320. For this problem we have an extra 5 outside the radical sign, which means we'll multiply our final answer by 5. 320 inside the radical, we can do a factor tree for. Anytime a number ends in 0, it means it's 10 times some number for 320. In this case, it would be 32 times 10. The 32 we can factor. We could use 8 times 4. The 8 we can factor. We can use 4 times 2. And the 4 we can factor, which would be 2 times 2. This 4 we can also factor, which again would be 2 times 2, and the 10 we can factor, which would be 5 times 2. Again, you want to factor do your factor tree as much as possible until you get just the prime factors at the bottom. And again, you want to circle the pairs, only 2 at a time. We have one set of 2's, another set